Imagine you are the most powerful person on Earth. You can command the labor of an entire nation. And you decide to spend 20 years of that power and a staggering share of your kingdom's wealth, building the largest object any human being has ever made. Not a city, not a fortress, not a temple people can use. A solid mountain of stone, over 2 million blocks of it, almost entirely filled in, with only a few narrow passages inside. And it is for one person who will be dead by the time it matters. Look at it purely practically, and it makes no sense at all. Nobody lives in it. Nothing is grown in it. It defends nothing and produces nothing. So why did ancient humans do this? Why this exact shape? And here's the part almost nobody knows. Why did completely unconnected civilizations on opposite sides of the planet, with no contact whatsoever, all independently arrive at the same idea? The answer to that last question is genuinely surprising. But let's start with Egypt. The first thing to understand is that calling a pyramid a tomb is technically true and completely misleading. Because to the Egyptians, it was not a place to store a body. It was a machine. Ancient Egyptian belief held that a person was made of several parts. There was the physical body. There was the ka, a kind of life force that stayed with the body and needed to be fed. And there was the ba, the part of you that could move, travel, and needed to be reunited with your remains each night to continue existing. If the body was destroyed, the whole system collapsed. There was no eternity to go to. So step one was obvious. Protect the body forever. That explains mummification, and it explains the thick stone. But it does not explain the shape. If you just wanted a strongbox for a corpse, you could dig a deep hidden hole in the desert, which is exactly what later pharaohs eventually did in the Valley of the Kings. A pyramid is the opposite of hidden. It is the loudest possible object. It is visible from far away, it announces itself, and it points. That is because the shape itself was the sacred part. To understand it, you have to know the Egyptian story of how the world began. In the beginning, they believed, there was nothing but Nu, an endless dark ocean of chaos. No land, no light, nothing. And then, out of that infinite water, a single mound of earth rose up. The first land. The first solid thing that ever existed. They called that mound the Benben. And on it, the Creator God appeared and made everything else. That word matters. The name Benben likely comes from an Egyptian root meaning to rise or to shine. And in the great sun temple at Heliopolis, there sat a sacred pyramid-shaped stone, also called the Benben, believed to be the spot where the first rays of the sun struck the earth each morning. Now look at a pyramid again. It is that mound, rebuilt in stone at enormous scale. Every pyramid was a copy of the moment creation began. By building one, a pharaoh was placing himself at the very origin point of existence, at the place where life first burst out of nothing. He was not building a grave. He was building a rebirth. And there is a second layer to the shape that is even more beautiful. Go outside on a day with broken cloud and watch sunbeams break through and fan down toward the ground. That spreading triangle of light has a shape. It is a pyramid. Many Egyptologists believe the smooth-sided pyramid was designed to represent exactly that, the rays of the sun made solid. A frozen sunbeam resting on the desert with the dead king inside it. And you can actually watch this idea develop, step by step, in the archaeology. The earliest Egyptian elite were buried in flat, low, rectangular mud brick structures called mastabas. Then, around 2670 BCE, an architect named Imhotep did something nobody had done before. For the pharaoh Djoser at Saqqara, he stacked mastabas on top of each other, each one smaller than the last, and built the whole thing out of stone rather than mud brick. The result was the step pyramid, the first pyramid in the world, and the first time humans built monumentally in stone. And scholars think those steps were literal. It was a staircase. The idea was that the king's soul would climb those steps upward to join the sun god and take his place among the stars. We are not guessing at this either. Carved into the walls of later pyramids are the pyramid texts, among the oldest religious writings on Earth, and they describe exactly this: a stairway laid down for the king so that he may climb up to the sky. Then, a few generations later, under the pharaoh Sneferu, the steps were filled in and smoothed over into the true, straight-sided pyramid we all picture. The staircase became a sunbeam. The climb became a ray of light. So put it all together, and here is what a pyramid actually is. It is the mound of creation, so the king can be reborn from the beginning of the world. It is a staircase, so he can climb. And it is a solidified beam of sunlight connecting the ground to the sun itself. It was never a coffin. It was a launch pad. But now we come to the part of this story that turns the whole thing upside down. Because if pyramids were built out of specifically Egyptian religion, from a specifically Egyptian creation myth, then pyramids should only exist in Egypt. They absolutely do not. Start with the country that most people cannot name. It is not Egypt that has the most pyramids in the world. It is Sudan. Egypt has roughly 118. Sudan has around 255, more than double. They were built by the Kingdom of Kush in ancient Nubia between roughly 700 BCE and 350 CE at sites like Meru, Nuri, and El Kuru. They look distinctly different too, much steeper, narrow, and needle-like, rising at around 70 degrees compared to Egypt's 40 to 50. Then cross the ocean entirely. In Mesoamerica, the Maya and their neighbors built enormous pyramids with no knowledge that Egypt existed. And, crucially, theirs were mostly not tombs at all. They were temples, platforms with shrines on top, stages for public ritual. Same shape, different purpose. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerians and Babylonians built ziggurats, stepped mud brick mountains topped with temples. In Peru, people were stacking monumental platforms at roughly the same era as early Egypt. Pyramidal structures also appear in China, Indonesia, and elsewhere. By some counts, at least 39 distinct civilizations across 6 continents, spread over nearly 6,000 years, independently built pyramids. And almost none of them had any contact with each other. This is the fact that launches 1,000 conspiracy theories. Surely, people say, this proves some lost global civilization or visitors from elsewhere teaching everyone the same design. The real explanation is far less exotic and far more interesting. It is physics. Ask yourself this. You have no steel, no reinforced concrete, and no cranes. You have stone, mud brick, and human muscle. And you want to build something extremely tall that will still be standing in 1,000 years. What shape can you actually make? Try a tall vertical tower of stacked stone. The blocks at the bottom carry the entire weight of everything above them, concentrated in a tiny area. It cracks and collapses. Try a wall. It topples sideways in the first storm. There is essentially only one solution. You make the base extremely wide, and you make each layer slightly smaller than the one beneath it, so the weight spreads outward and downward instead of pressing on a single point. Do that, and the structure is pushing into the earth rather than fighting gravity. It is basically uncollapsible. And what shape do you get when you do that? A pyramid. Every single time. You can see the same rule in nature. Pour sand, gravel, or grain onto a flat surface and it forms a cone. Not because the sand is clever, but because that is the only stable way loose material can pile up. A pyramid is simply what a pile of heavy things wants to become. So the mystery dissolves. Humans on every continent shared 2 things: an urge to build something enormous that reached toward the sky and outlasted them, and the exact same laws of physics. Given those 2 facts, everyone was always going to arrive at the same answer. The pyramid is not a message from a lost civilization. It is what human ambition looks like when it collides with gravity. And there is one final reason these things got built, one that has nothing to do with gods at all. A pyramid is a nation-building project. To construct one, Egypt had to organize quarries hundreds of kilometers apart, build harbors and canals, run a food supply chain from the Nile Delta, feed and house tens of thousands of rotating workers, train specialists, and manage all of it with written records. Farmers from villages that had never met came together for months and worked as one system. Many Egyptologists now argue that building the pyramid is what built Egypt. The monument was the furnace in which a collection of villages was forged into a unified state. The stone was almost the byproduct. The real product was a nation that knew how to act as one. So why did ancient humans build pyramids? Because they were terrified of ending. Because they believed a shape could carry a soul from the earth up to the sun. Because in a world where everything rots, floods, burns, and is forgotten, they wanted to make one thing that would not go away. And here is the strangest part. It worked. Khufu has been dead for 4,500 years. His civilization is gone. His language stopped being spoken. His gods are no longer worshipped. Every institution he ruled has crumbled into dust. And yet you know his name. Right now, in this moment, thousands of kilometers and 45 centuries away, a stranger is thinking about him. He built a machine to make himself immortal. It is still running.